Something big is shifting in the sky above us right now, and it's about to shake things up in a serious way. More violent storms, sharper temperature swings, and a weather pattern that flat out refuses to sit still. Over the next 48 hours, a powerful storm system is going to fire up across the northern plains and the Midwest, where an advancing cold front will crank up both the instability and the wind shear working together in the atmosphere. That combination is a recipe for supercells, the kind capable of throwing down destructive hail, punishing wind gusts, and yes, a few tornadoes riding along with them. And this isn't just a one-region headache. As the pattern flips, the Northeast is going to get absolutely soaked, hit wave after wave by thunderstorms carrying a real and growing threat of dangerous flash flooding over the coming days. This is not a setup you want to shrug off or take lightly. So let's dive straight into it, because today alone is already delivering both a flooding emergency in the making and a serious, severe weather threat taking shape at the same time. Two very different hazards unfolding in two very different corners of the country on the very same day. That right there tells you exactly how disruptive this pattern change is about to be. Right now, a level 2 risk of severe weather is already sitting on the board, stretching across parts of North and South Dakota near Fargo. Just to the north, in northern Minnesota, 4 separate level 1 risk zones are also lit up. Expect a messy, small-scale kind of severe weather today, the type that is genuinely tough to pin down with any real precision. Still, every one of these areas is facing the chance of damaging wind gusts and scattered large hail today, and if you happen to live up in far northern Minnesota, there's an added layer to worry about, an isolated tornado risk riding right along with it. Hail up to baseball size is possible near Grand Forks and Fargo, and a 2% tornado risk is officially in place, which means an isolated twister today is absolutely not off the table. This is small scale, hard to pin down severe weather, but that doesn't make it any less dangerous. These are exactly the kind of setups that can surprise people who assume a lower end risk level means nothing worth worrying about. If you live up in the northern plains, stay sharp and stay weather aware. And if the situation escalates, updates will be coming in real time, so make sure you're tuned in. Tuesday is when things really start to ramp up. The threat grows and becomes far more organized as we move through both Tuesday and Wednesday. A level 2 risk now stretches from around Rapid City all the way over to Minneapolis, an area where damaging winds, large to very large hail, and a handful of tornadoes could all show up in the same afternoon. There's also a level 1 risk sitting over Dallas, Shreveport, Richmond, Charlotte, and back around Sioux Falls. But make no mistake, the real hotspot stays locked on the northern plains, where scattered to numerous reports of damaging wind and large hail are likely, along with a genuine tornado risk baked right into the mix. And that threat doesn't shrink after Tuesday passes. It actually expands right on into Wednesday, building rather than fading as the week goes on. By Wednesday, the severe weather keeps grinding across the Midwest and Central Plains, with clusters of thunderstorms firing up and bringing damaging winds, large hail, and possibly an isolated tornado or two along for the ride. Wisconsin looks like it's carrying the highest tornado risk in that window, but honestly, a quick spin-up tornado could pop up anywhere along the line of storms expected to develop through Wednesday afternoon and evening. There's a real chance this entire risk gets bumped up in future outlooks, so this is absolutely one to keep watching closely as we get closer. If you're anywhere inside that risk zone, stay alert and stay ready heading into Wednesday. This is one of those forecasts that could easily look different and more intense by the time we actually get there. Storms this time of year have a way of surprising forecasters when instability and shear both stay elevated for multiple days in a row. And that's exactly what's setting up right now. But severe storms are only half the story today. The other half is a major flooding threat building across the interior Northeast, centered mainly around New York City, Philadelphia, and the corridor running from Bridgeport up to Hartford. A moderate risk of excessive rainfall is now in effect, stretching from around I-84 down toward Atlantic City. If you're anywhere in that zone, remember the golden rule. Turn around, don't drown. It's already been raining heavily overnight, and that rain shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. Expect it to keep going for several more hours, and it's going to bring some genuinely dangerous flooding potential right along with it. When the ground is already saturated and more rain just keeps stacking on top, that's the exact recipe that turns ordinary streets and creeks into real hazards fast. Let's break down the timing of everything set to unfold over the next several days, starting with today. The Northeast deserves special attention first because the overnight rain there simply hasn't let up. Even through the morning and right into lunchtime, New York City and Allentown will still be getting rained on. There's not much of a severe weather threat in these specific spots, but the rain itself just keeps coming and coming. Overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, that rain shifts into southern New England, which spells even more flooding trouble for places like Nantucket, Cape Cod, Boston, and Rhode Island. All of these areas are looking at a stretch of heavy rainfall that isn't going anywhere fast. Realistically, it won't clear out until Wednesday morning at the earliest. That's multiple straight days of rain on top of rain for communities that are already waterlogged. While all that rain grinds on, severe storms are also going to fire up elsewhere. Washington, D.C. and Virginia are once again sitting squarely in the bullseye for the highest severe weather threat in the mid-Atlantic today, with damaging winds and large hail possible, mainly during the mid to late afternoon and early evening hours. Around 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern Time, storms should be brushing right up against the D.C. area. Wind gusts remain the headline concern, just like they've been for days now straight. That threat doesn't vanish after today either. Tuesday brings the exact same setup with more damaging wind gusts likely across the Carolinas, Virginia, and southern Pennsylvania. It's basically the same story, one more day in a row. Here's the thing though. As intense as the severe weather sounds, it's genuinely not even the biggest concern in this whole setup. The real danger is the sheer, staggering volume of rain about to fall. We're talking an additional 1 to 5 inches on top of areas that have already picked up several inches over the last 24 hours alone. Long Island by itself could see over 4 inches more stacked on top. Some high-resolution model output is even showing spots just offshore picking up as much as 10 inches. And there's a real chance that heaviest band could shift further inland. Southern Rhode Island, southeastern Massachusetts, and Cape Cod could be looking at 5 to 10 inches of rain between now and Tuesday night. Think about that for a second. Inches upon inches falling on ground that's already saturated from the last day of rain, with more storms lined up right behind it. That's how flash flooding turns from a possibility into a reality in a hurry. Bottom line, this is a genuinely dangerous rainfall setup unfolding across the Northeast over the next 48 hours, and it deserves to be taken seriously, far more seriously than the severe weather headlines sitting next to it. Shifting gears to the rest of the country now, if you're anywhere along the Gulf Coast or through the Tennessee Valley today, expect pulse thunderstorms to pop. These are the classic pop-up storms, the kind that can throw down isolated damaging winds and sudden lightning strikes without much warning at all. Exactly the type that can catch you completely off guard. If you've got a ball game or any outdoor plans on the calendar, make sure you've got a reliable way to get alerts. And if you hear a thunder roar, get inside immediately. Tomorrow brings that same setup for the southern plains and the southeast. Keep an eye on the sky, because with all this instability and moisture hanging around, conditions can flip fast, even without one big organized storm system driving the show. It doesn't take a named system or headline forecast to ruin an afternoon outside. Sometimes it's just a hot, humid day with the right ingredients quietly stacking up. Up in the northern plains and Midwest, tonight and tomorrow, bring an elevated severe weather risk that's worth watching closely. Today, expect a few hail-producing storms to fire up near Grand Forks around 4 or 5 p.m. It's going to be hot out there, and if any of these storms manage to stay discreet this evening, an isolated tornado threat comes right into play. That said, our tornado parameter numbers are running fairly low right now, somewhere between 0 and 1, maybe topping out at 2, so a truly significant tornado threat isn't really on the table today. Still, if storms can hold their shape as standalone cells until around 7 or 8 p.m., the tornado odds actually improve, because by then the temperature starts dropping while the dew point climbs, narrowing that temperature to dew point spread, a key ingredient this time of year that helps make a storm more surface-based and far more tornado-friendly. If that discrete structure doesn't hold together, expect these storms to merge into a solid line instead, producing a significant damaging wind threat this evening as they track toward Alexandria and St. Cloud right along the I-94 and I-29 corridors. By around 10 or 11 tonight, that line should start weakening as it pushes on toward Minneapolis, running out of daytime heating and instability to feed on. But don't relax just yet. Round 2 lands on Tuesday, and it could genuinely end up being the bigger and more dangerous of the 2 rounds. Model data is going a little wild with Tuesday's setup, honestly. By around 6 or 7 p.m., eyeing high-resolution guidance shows multiple discrete supercells firing up across South Dakota and Minnesota. Watch closely where the highest tornado parameter values line up. That's along a boundary running roughly from Winter back into southern Minnesota. If a supercell, like one modeled developing north of Mitchell, manages to interact with that boundary, an isolated strong tornado threat becomes very real, especially with the temperature and dew point spread staying tight heading into 7 p.m. tomorrow. One more thing worth flagging clearly. These storms could organize into a line much faster than current model output is suggesting. In fact, the very latest run already shows a cluster of storms with discrete supercells forming by 6 p.m., but now more than 50 miles further west than earlier guidance had it. That kind of discrepancy is exactly why the Storm Prediction Center has this pegged as a broad 2% tornado risk right now. There's genuine, real uncertainty about exactly where things will come together tomorrow. This particular model run pushes toward a faster transition into a line of storms, but here's what we do know with far more confidence. The tornado parameter values will run high tomorrow, meaning strong wind shear is firmly in place for this time of year. If a storm manages to tap fully into that environment, we could be looking at a significant tornado, potentially EF2 or even stronger if conditions align just right. But it could just as easily go linear fast instead, which would shift the danger toward a significant damaging wind event across South Dakota rather than a tornado outbreak. Two very different outcomes from the same setup, depending on how the storms decide to organize themselves. Either way, this system pushes on into Minnesota later Tuesday night and overnight, bringing wind gusts as strong as 75 miles per hour, along with an embedded tornado risk riding inside the line. If you're anywhere in this path Tuesday, stay alert. Updates will follow immediately if this trends toward a confirmed tornado threat. This is a setup with real teeth, and the uncertainty in exactly where it lines up only makes it more important to stay tuned rather than less. When the models themselves can't agree on placement within 50 miles, that's your cue that the forecast is still very much in motion, and it could sharpen or shift right up until storms actually start firing. Wednesday's severe weather picture carries more uncertainty right now, but the leftover storm cluster from Tuesday night should push into the Midwest, bringing at least a risk of large hail and damaging wind gusts along with it. The tornado threat should stay generally low in this stretch, though not zero, so don't write it off completely. If you're near Appleton, Sheboygan, or Reedsburg, stay weather aware for damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour, and the real possibility of a brief tornado or two as these storms track through central and southern Wisconsin and into parts of central and northern Michigan. Not the headline day of the week, but not a day to ignore either. Meanwhile, back over the Central Plains, keep an eye on storms developing off the Rockies on Wednesday too. These look poised to produce significant straight-line damaging wind gusts through the afternoon and evening hours, tracking through North Platte, Kearney, O'Neill, and Hayes overnight, before pushing on into the Midwest by Thursday morning, potentially carrying enough leftover energy to spark even more severe weather there on Thursday itself, one system essentially handing the baton off to the next. Beyond Thursday, the whole pattern is due for a major shakeup. Severe weather should persist right into the weekend, but by the start of next week, a growing number of models are pointing toward a large area of high pressure building over the Rockies. So what does that actually mean for you? It means the heat is about to spike hard through the middle of July. There's a legitimate chance we're looking at 110-degree readings across Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. It really could get that extreme, no exaggeration. On top of that, this kind of setup tends to suppress severe weather across much of the Great Plains, the Midwest, and even the East Coast. Nothing's locked in stone yet, but it is absolutely on the table right now, and it's exactly the kind of pattern shift that flips a stormy stretch into a scorching one almost overnight. The low-level jet will also play a role in how severe weather behaves during that stretch. And right now, there's no strong signal pointing toward major, severe weather risk in the middle of July. The one thing genuinely worth watching is any shortwave troughs sliding off the Rockies and up into the Midwest, which could still keep some severe weather alive even during that heat surge. But make no mistake, all of this points toward a serious heat wave sitting on the horizon, and frankly, it doesn't look great for anyone across the Great Plains. This could end up hotter than what we just went through around the 4th of July, and that's genuinely saying something considering how brutal that stretch already felt to a lot of people across the region. Before jumping into temperatures, let's quickly run through how the radar looks heading into the end of the week. Thursday brings more chances for severe weather across the central and northern plains, with some isolated to scattered activity also possible in the Ohio Valley and Midwest. Though overall, it doesn't look especially organized just yet. Friday shifts the main focus over to the Northeast and Ohio Valley, where damaging winds would be the primary concern with any storms that manage to fire up. Then, heading into the weekend, most of the severe weather potential, if there's any left by that point, gets pushed down toward the Gulf Coast. There could be something brewing again around the start of next week across the central and northern plains, but confidence in that is still genuinely low right now, so treat it as a possibility to watch rather than a lock. What we can speak to with far more confidence, though, is the temperature outlook for the next 7 days. This week looks fairly typical across most of the country, at or slightly above average in the southern plains and Midwest, and right around average for the Ohio Valley and Northeast, with highs mostly sitting in the 80s and even some 70s showing up over Iowa and Wisconsin, which honestly sounds pretty pleasant for this time of year, almost deceptively calm given what's lining up right behind it. The real concern kicks in once we move into next week. Some models, including the GFS, are flagging some genuinely extreme heat sitting right on the horizon. Looking at next Tuesday, about 8 days out from now, the GFS is showing Sioux Falls pushing past 100 degrees and Oklahoma City hitting 108. And that's before factoring in the heat index values, which the GFS suggests will run considerably worse than the raw air temperatures alone. Davenport, St. Louis, and Indianapolis could all push well past the 100-degree mark by that point. Cities that don't typically see numbers like that outside of the very worst stretches of summer. This has all the makings of a serious heat event heading into the middle of next week. Something to take especially seriously if you or someone around you deals with respiratory issues or any kind of heat sensitivity. Stay hydrated no matter what happens, and take it seriously. Triple-digit heat combined with high humidity is no joke, and it sneaks up on people who aren't expecting it after a fairly mild stretch. The heat isn't going anywhere for the rest of the summer, but next week in particular could bring a genuinely extreme heat wave if these current trends end up holding up. So here's the full picture, all stitched together. Severe storms and flash flooding dominating the next 2 to 3 days from the northern plains through the northeast. A possible upgrade in the tornado threat as we move through Tuesday and Wednesday. A gradual quieting trend by the weekend. And then, waiting right behind all of it, a legitimate shot at extreme dangerous heat settling in across the middle of the country by the middle of next week. A lot is changing, and it's changing fast. This is exactly the kind of stretch where checking back in for updates actually matters because pieces of this forecast are still moving,